Welcome back and welcome to Module 5 of our Partnerships and Content Academy. We are halfway, team. You're doing amazingly. I hope you are tagging me in your content, and I hope we've got all of our pillars. This module is going to be a bit chunkier purely because we are talking about packages and the ultimate proposal deck. Okay, so your workbook that I am going to gift you and some resources I'm also going to gift you are going to include a checklist, making sure that you've got everything in your proposal deck that a sponsor would need. And I'm also going to outline in detail, the additions and things that you can sell and add value to that don't cost you any money. And also I'm going to chat through how to utilize unsold sponsor space as well on the car. So a bit to go through in this module. So either chuck your earphones in or turn me up on your car and let's get into it. Okay, so with our proposal deck and our packages, this is where I find a lot of drivers tend to fall over. So basically, they go into a business and say, do you want to sponsor me? And the business owner's like, okay, cool. Like, so what do I get? And unless you can answer that question with definitiveness and you can talk to stats and broadcast numbers and crowd attendance and your own social media stats and everything in between, your credibility can get knocked quite quickly, and obviously the meeting might go south quite quickly as well. So today we're turning you into somebody who can confidently say, here are our partnership options, and here's what's included, and here's how we'll make it worth your while, right? ROI is going to be your favorite acronym by the end of this academy course. That's literally the whole goal with our partners, is to get them return on their investment, because the more they get back, the more they're going to invest into you. So here's the deal. And if you've watched my socials, you'll hear me say this a gajillion times. Okay, but logos don't close deals. Logos on a car is not a proposition anymore. Logos don't close deals, offers do, and logos don't renew deals. Delivery and reporting does. Okay, so what businesses are actually buying? So they don't care, well, unless they're a super passionate fan, they won't care about motorsport in the way that you do. So you and I are obviously diehard motorsport fanatics. But what we have to do is really sell that dream to them so they understand the adrenaline rush when, you watched your favorite driver on track, and, sell that dream and that love and that obsession for motorsport. So the outcomes that you are best off mentioning and effectively what they will be buying is attention from the right audience, credibility by association. So obviously being able to say, their business is affiliated with supercars and, with whatever category you may be racing in. Content they can use as well, because you're actually saving the money in marketing collateral by investing in motorsport marketing effectively. So experiences for their clients or staff, community visibility, B2B, so business to business connections, and proof that it's working. So if your package is like logo on a car, you're competing with billboards, okay? But if your package is content plus exposure plus experience plus proof, like it is a much easier yes. So if you have tiers at the moment, I will give you a bit of a tier system that I sometimes follow, but in all honesty, I like to create bespoke proposals. I like to really find out what their marketing objectives are, and then from a motorsport marketing stance, show them how we will deliver that through the car. So basically, if you went into a business and they said something like, I want brand awareness and that high value media opportunity, and like for all these examples, let's say they've got 10K, okay? So with that, immediately you need to think, okay, what is the highest, brand awareness activity I can do? Basically, it's the biggest logo you possibly can get on your car for 10K. Right? They might like social media campaign, but you should always include all of your partners in socials, but you would go and lean really heavily into the media PR and a large logo on the car. If they said to you that they were looking for, growth to their email database, then you would look at probably doing grid girls, and getting them to get people to sign up to their database. If they wanted to grow their social media, you would then have, a smaller logo on the car and a really aggressive social media campaign leading up to and after the race round as well. So it really depends. And I encourage you to be as bespoke as you can, because I'm going to talk through obviously tiered packages and whether you want to call it like starter one, like 2 is growth and 3 is major, or you want to do like bronze, silver, gold, platinum, like whatever, it's interchangeable. But yeah, I truly encourage that you do make that bespoke amount, because if you put 20 grand as your top partnership tier, and then includes like race suit designs and all this other stuff they don't care about, they're not going to see the value immediately. So keeping it as simple as we can. Like I said, you can do your bronze, silver, gold. You can do your silver, gold, platinum. You can do starter, growth, major. I mean, if you want to get cute and put names on it, you can do pit lane, podium, and pole position or something like that. And basically, these tiers make you look professional and makes it easier in a sense for people to choose. Whereas I guess this is the only disadvantage with the bespoke package, is that you kind of have to educate them and sell the dream at the same time, which obviously running a marketing agency is easier for me to do. So if you're doing this on your own, maybe that is fine to do, but just throw in some deal sweeteners in, we'll chuck you on our helmet and stuff like that. Every package should include some mix of these 4 buckets, okay? So branding, so obviously, as I said, that'll be car, helmet, suit, and potentially garage signs, depending on which category you're in. The second part would be content, so real stories, posts, and photo assets. Experiences, so trackside access, VIP appearances, pit tours, grid walks, all that sort of stuff. And number 4 is proof, so post around update and reporting. So if you can't do experiences yet, don't stress. Content and proof alone will absolutely still close the deal, as long as you've got something to kind of go back with. So now let's talk about a deliverables menu, but let's make it super sponsor friendly. So instead of forcing a business into a rigid deal, give them a menu. And this is where we can bring the bespoke activities into. So you could basically say, from a content deliverable perspective, we've got reels, we've got stories, we've got a partner spotlight post, we've got content day and photos delivered to the sponsor for reposting, for example. And then business deliverables, you do like a staff shout out, BTS for the team, client giveaway, activations like in-store appearances, LinkedIn stuff as well. And I know throughout this academy, I'm talking quite a lot about Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, but LinkedIn is going to be a whole separate module I'm going to record and put together for you guys who are interested, because LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool in this space. If they're looking for hospitality experience, obviously, trackside VIP or pit tour and meet the driver, you need to be at the forefront of your value as well. So if you don't have someone like me that is going around and doing all your hosting duties for you, get a family member if you can, or a friend or whomever, so you can truly focus on racing. But yeah, it's important that they kind of get the handheld treatment, the white glove treatment, or whatever you want to call it, the chauffeur service, if you will. So and then finally, our proof obviously is our post around email update and monthly summary if it's a longer term. Some partners will opt to pay like a retainer. So they'll, if they invest 100K for the year and you've got 6 race rounds and they want to not pay the chunk off each 6 race rounds, they want to do monthly retainer, you may be able to sweeten the deal by offering that, and then you'll give them a consistent and continual content flow in and around race weekends as well. So that's something just to have a bit of a think about. And then also media mentions, screenshots, links. So if you're getting into the likes of any motorsport publications, V8, Sleuths, your Speed, Cafes, your Auto Actions of the world, you can utilize them and lean in and be like, hey, look, these are our partners. So a reminder, and I touched on this in the last one, but just don't promise what you can't deliver. It's the fastest way to break trust and credibility. So your package should feel like easy to deliver, easy to measure, and easy to renew. So simple, clear, and beneficial for both parties. So let's talk a little bit about the pricing mindset. I'm not giving you one magic number because it truly depends on your category costs and your deliverables. But here's the mindset I want you to come into your pricing, your pricing strategy with. So price based on marketing, value, and access, not your discomfort. Okay. Businesses pay agencies thousands for content packages alone. So if you're providing content and exposure and reporting, that is real value. Okay? So make sure you're upgrading your language so it sounds commercial, and swap racing language for business language as well. So, don't change your whole personality to have these conversations, but just, know your audience, I guess. Instead of saying, logo on a car, you can do brand placement across race weekend assets. And instead of I'll post a few stories. You can say dedicated partner content. We tag CTAs and repost ready assets. And instead of saying like, thanks for sponsoring me, you could say partnering with us provides ongoing digital exposure content, trackside experiences. It's not about being fancy, as I said, but it's just about showing them you understand business, because at the end of the day, your business your race team and your car and you are a personal brand and therefore a business. Okay. So there is this little rule that I've sort of developed, which is the 1-page package rule. Is so basically this means that your tiers should all fit on 1 page. Okay. Nobody wants a 14-page novel just to understand what they're buying. People are time poor and they simply don't have the time or probably the care factor to read, a 27-page beautifully presented proposal. I love to utilize 1 pages or even website landing pages over proposals these days, because, it's not common that people will be printing out proposals and then, sitting down and flicking through them, like half the time you're on your phone on the go. So the more convenient you can make it, obviously the better. So this 1 page can include who you are, what you're building season, your 3 tiers or your menu options effectively, and your key deliverables. And not most importantly, but this is super important, is clear next steps. So you're not sort of like, instead of giving a yes and no answer to them, you're giving your open question answering. So, instead of saying like, oh, are you interested to jump on board? And then immediately, obviously, they can say yes or no. And instead you can kind of say, reply with your further tier and we'll lock it in, and really go back to what their objectives are and say, let's talk about your objectives and how we can help you. It's all about, delivering value back to them. So that's just to get them in the front door, right? So that's just to build interest. So once you get them interested, that's where the bigger proposal deck can come in. So what your ultimate proposal deck should include, and you can build this out. Like I said, I'm going to give you all of this in your notes for after, but just to kind of chat through, each part. Basically, this is the part that makes you look like a serious operator. Okay. So, we can call it the ultimate proposal deck, which is basically what you send someone, they say, yes, I'm interested, show me the details. And think of it like a mini pitch deck that answers like, how big is this? Who will see it? What do I get? How do we measure it? And why you? Because again, there are a lot of other drivers vying for sponsor eyeballs and sponsor cash, more importantly. So, this is where your personal branding in the last couple of modules will come into play. If you've got a solid personal brand, it's an absolute no-brainer for these businesses to partner with you. So let's talk about what you need to include in all of this good stuff. Now, again, I'm going to give you the works and you can strip it back if you want to make it a little bit more simplistic, but here is kind of like what I'll give you as a bit of a base. So your first slide obviously is your cover. So you should have really strong imagery of yourself and or the car and or yourself, so they can see immediately what assets they have available. So the ideal one for this is definitely a photo of you standing next to the car, ideally with your helmet on, because obviously, again, we're showing all the assets that can be branded by the business. Subconsciously, it's like, okay, cool, I've got some options here. So you would also want to put a 1-line promise in here. So whether you've got like a tagline or whether, it's the ROI focus team of the field, or you can come up with any number, the small family team, all of these things you can come up with. So obviously your name, category, car number, team name, and then one more line is what you're building and why it matters. So really showcasing, if you're a younger driver coming through, your dream is to become a supercars driver or a Trans Am driver or whatever your dream is, Porsche Carrera Cup. And then, obviously the hero photo. So the second slide is why you and why now. So this is important because this is where your research comes into it. And so they just don't feel like another random business that you're pitching to. So really go in here, your season goals and key rounds, and then your story angle as well. So we'll touch on media in another couple of modules time, and how to build out the ultimate pitch to get featured in media. But this is great to pull on the heartstrings. So underdog, local hero, comeback, rookie, business owner, family man, whatever. Yeah, just make sure you've got your angle and then how that ties back to that business. So your next slide should be your audience snapshot. So we're talking social media here. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube if you have it, and average views or reach or a bit of a range. So you can do in and out of race weekend. So if you're doing it outside of race weekend, it's again the proof that you can continue momentum even when you're not racing. Engagement highlights. So, maybe you had a reel go viral, or, you're seeing consistent 10K views and, things like that. So all of that brands love to see as well. And then also what your audience really cares about. So this is where it's really good to deep dive into your analytics and actually have a look and see who your audience is, what their what the demographic is, what their interests are, which you can see all through your, if you have Meta Business Suite, you can see everything in that. So I always recommend having a bit of a monthly catch up with yourself effectively and being like, okay, cool. Are we growing? Are we not growing? What content's performing best? What can we try? And having that kind of strategy. It's really critical. And this is something that I will touch on a little bit later, but it's something that I'll offer inside the paid to race membership, especially the VIP packages, because we'll do monthly calls together where you can ask me anything, but there will be deep dive topics on things like reporting and how to do it, and the best way to position that then to utilize it for partners. So that's basically their social or digital footprint, if you will. And then the next slide is the category reach. Okay, so this is where a lot of people seem to miss this out, but if you're in, Supercars or Super 2 or Carrera Cup or GR Cup or Super, like you get the gist, right? Like you get to lean into their audience as well. So where is the category shown? Have you put you've got KO or Fox Sports or Channel 7 or SBS or Blendline or wherever you're featured, show that. And then, the category's own social channels, reach, followers, and all that sort of stuff. If your category is on board, which they should be, it's a great idea to try and get some of those stats from them so that you can utilize those as proof as well. I would imagine that most category managers would be happy to share that information. It's rising tide lifts all ships. So it's silly if they don't, but I would definitely ask. And then any promoter pages or newsletters or media partners as well. So again, if you're offering high visibility and you've got a partner on board, that this new potential partner you're chatting with, they could do business together, offer that cross collaboration. And if say one of your sponsors has a huge social media following, if you do collab tags across, that new partner will have access to come and potentially get some followers off of that other one. So it's all a beautiful little ecosystem of working together. And then on your next slide, you will want to do the TV broadcast exposure. So this is where the money figures start to really ramp up. So like I said similarly before, where it airs, so networks and streaming. Now, again, if you're part of the Supercars calendar, I would be really leaning into this. KO and even Channel 7 often will report on their numbers, especially if they're good. And then also you can say things, especially with KO, like, the race rounds live on there for the entire year. So people will go back and rewatch them. And the demographic of KO subscribers is that higher household income demographic. And if it's on Channel 7, it's, quote unquote, the home of sport, home of sport, either way. And, again, you've got the 7+ BVOD to lean into as well and say, people can go back and rewatch it and whatnot. So juice it up as much as you can. And then include the sessions that you're featured in, because you want this after to calculate your media value. So it's races, highlights, and even replays from the weekend. Make sure you include your all sessions, regardless of whether they're broadcast or not. So a lot of the time that practice isn't, especially in the sport categories, isn't broadcast. However, quali and the races typically are. So make sure you let them know exactly how much TV time they're looking at and why motorsport TV exposure is valuable. You guys will know this to be true, that motorsport fans are some of the most loyal fans you can find around in any other sport. So all you need to do is look at, the fan retention of a classic one I love to use is Red Bull, for example. They invest heavily in action sports and things like that because it's got such a high retention rate of customers. And effectively, if they see their hero, their favorite driver, drinking a Red Bull, immediately it's like, yeah, I need a Red Bull as well. So we really lean into how passionate and how sticky the motorsport fans are and how loyal they are to brands that come on board to support their sport. And then the other thing, which I always recommend, is if you have past data and if you don't go and get it, get how often you were on broadcast and add some screenshots. If you can screenshot from KO, it's a bit tricky, I know, and any clips that may have been posted that they're public access. We get usage rights basically. So that's a really important slide. And then the next one is the crowd and attendance, basically the event scale. So crowd attendance, if available. Last year, all bar one of the Supercars rounds, crowd attendance was published, and they were huge numbers. And last year, a lot of the events actually beat records. So it's great to have rounds like that. And also, depending on your calendar and if you have any key rounds like the Gold Coast, Bathurst, Adelaide is another one. Even Townsville have some unbelievable crowd numbers there. So leaning into those is kind of like your major value additions, and then the other ones is a bit more of a support kind of vibe. So yeah, that's crowd attendance, and then the event scale. So if it was local event or like a major round, and then also like some on-site branding exposure opportunities. So at most events they will have opportunities should they want you to do a bit of an activation. And then slide 7, you're going to want to give some branding inventory, so some car branding, some basically what they get and how much it costs for each part of the car. And again, give a rough kind of estimate. Suit and helmet placements, team assets as well. If you've got a transporter, you've got a mobile billboard. So, make sure you're utilizing that. And then your digital assets as well. So you buy your pin post, highlights, all that sort of stuff. They can jump on that. And then the next slide is your content deliverables. So what they receive in exchange. So basically your tier inclusions, and whether you did sort of like the silver, gold, platinum vibes, or you've got your sort of menu of what you can do and you're creating bespoke packages. Just make sure that kind of information is in there. And then what sponsors can reuse, i.e. like what assets they're able to utilize on their side. Slide 9 is all about hospitality and experiences, if that's available or relevant for you in your category. So you're talking like trackside VIP pit tours, track walks, meet and greets, all that sort of stuff. They can also bring their clients and or their staff as well. So you can get corporate boxes and things like that. And more often than not, those bigger corporate boxes will have, driver appearances and guys from the supercars coming up there and some of the commentary team and all that sort of stuff. And then the next slide is activation ideas. So how it drives results, because you want to be on the front foot with that. You don't want them to be like, oh, okay, so like, how are you going to do this, right? Instead, you can be like, we do giveaways, we can do promo codes, we can do a lead gen landing page, we can do staff engagement, trackside clients, all of these sorts of stuff. So adding that in there. And then your next slide needs to be proof and credibility. So your past partner logos, like even contra, like truly, like chuck them all on there. Media features, testimonials, even if you've got a case study, that's unbelievably important to have. So that's if you can sort of showcase what you've done with brands previously and how that's resulted in an uplift in either sales or website traffic or social engagement, all that kind of stuff, like chuck all that in there. And then slide 12, you want to talk about your reporting and your ROI. So how are you going to tell them basically the value that you delivered? So we've got our post-round partner update. So you can give them an example of that and what is tracked. So reach, view, save, shares, content links, photos, media mentions, all that kind of stuff. And I always and this is something to note for them as well, but I always send this within like 48 hours of the race, just so that it's warm and fresh in their mind and they're like, all right, amazing. And then your next slide is your investment and your next steps. Okay, so this is where you can, whether you've got an idea of their budget pre that, or you kind of put together a package that you think that will suit, or you've got your tier inclusions and prices. This can kind of go at the back, because what you want to have done is you've developed this relationship, you've sold the dream, you've got them all excited about it, and now it's like, okay, cool. Like now we can hit it with the dollar figure. So any optional add-ons as well, again, you want to just double down on that value that you're adding. And then calls to action is really, really important. So what do you want them to do if you're not sitting in front of them while they're reading it? Like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to email you? Do you want, just so that it's clear for people? And then the final page, it was just, again, some nice imagery. I would add your phone number, email, and socials. And then something that I've been doing more recently as well, especially for those who are printing stuff, I mean, even if you're using it on the computer, is a QR code to your media assets folder. And so it's basically like a little mini portfolio where they're able to see the kind of content that you can create and what your photos look like. And again, it's just putting them in that situ and being like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, this is what I can offer. This is awesome. And that, my friends, is the ultimate deck. So you don't need a perfect on day one, but you just need the bones of it. Okay. So when you combine like clear packages with a credible proposal deck, you stop sounding like a driver asking for help, and you start sounding like a marketing genius, to be honest. So, all right, let's get to your. I'm gonna stop calling it homework. I'm like call it something more fun. All right. So first things first, choose your 3-tier names, or make sure you've got your full menu that people can tick from if you want to do bespoke. Build out each tier using the 4 buckets that I spoke about. So branding, content, experience, and proof. And then, so we're going to call it the deliverables menu because it's a little bit more easy to understand of all of the things that they can choose from when you're creating your bespoke proposal, if, depending on how much money they have to invest. And then you can start your proposal deck with the slide structure as we went out above. And even if it's rough, just start filling it in. And like I said, I'll have a checklist for you to make sure you've got everything that I've mentioned included. And then you can start to go and do all of the, branding and making it pretty and all those sorts of things. So remember, like if you're using Canva, that you can create clickable links even when you export it as a PDF. So you want to use as many visual cues as possible. So yeah, if you can have a link, especially when you're talking about your socials, have a link or a QR code where they can play some of the videos and they're entertained halfway through. So they're not reading boring shit proposal and then, that's it. So, all right, that's module 5. Let's talk about the next module. We've got our offers now, and now you've got the deck structure to back it up. And next module is module 6. So we're talking about partner like a pro. So this is how to actually find new people to approach, land them, and then retain them using the outreach systems, follow-ups, and sponsor servicing strategies that makes renewals easy. And we actually do that within Coleman & Co. So I'm spilling all my secrets for you guys. So yeah, and the next module is a goodie as well. All right, happy proposal deck building. And as always, if you have any questions or you want some feedback, go jump in the portal and see how the best way to contact me. And I'm always here for you if you need help. So I'll see you in module 6.